Apex Legends has been out for just over a week now, and with that has come some insane numbers. 25 million downloads and over 2 million peak concurrent players just this last weekend. In this video, we're going to list the top 10 beginners tips, as a guide really, because all of us out there right now are pretty much beginners in Apex Legends. Now some of these tips might not be relevant in the future, balancing changes over time and video games get patched and whatnot, but if you like the video and it really did help you, let me know in the comments and drop the video a like. Okay, tip number 1. Know your loot spots and pick your landing zone carefully. The map in Apex Legends is divided into different named locations that harbour different tiers of loot. Certain places will give you a better chance of finding high tier loot than others. Now this map here gives you a good idea of what loot you can expect from different locations, and based on the trajectory of the dropship, you can then pick locations that benefit you and your squad. Bear in mind, however, that enemy squads will likely be dropping in nearby you, and just because there's a chance of high loot in certain locations, that doesn't mean you'll always get some, so be prepared to be set on by enemies very, very quickly. Even in low-tier loot locations, you can be certain somebody will find a weapon and start hunting you down. We're just a week into the game and not too many players know the loot tier locations yet, so use this to your advantage and start getting some early game kills before everyone catches on. Moving along to tip number 2, there's no fall damage in Apex Legends, and there's no squad damage or friendly fire either. No matter how high you are, and no matter what distance it is to the ground, you're not going to be taking any damage at all, which is both a blessing and a curse. It's a blessing because if you've got yourself into a sticky situation, maybe an enemy has got you cornered, if there's a drop nearby, you can just throw yourself off it and buy yourself some time. It's a curse, however, because the enemy chasing you can do exactly the same and won't get hurt either. When it comes to no squad damage, that means you can pretty much go all out with the explosives. Apex Legends lets friendly players pass through each other's bodies as well, so you won't get stuck on each other in tight spaces, like if you're fighting an enemy squad in a building or something. If one of your squad is playing Gibraltar, one of the legends, and called in his artillery strike, you're safe from all of those explosions, and those will only affect enemies. However, you can damage yourself with your own explosives, so don't go running straight after a grenade that you threw. You're probably going to get yourself killed. Tip number 3 is wall climbing. Not wall running, wall climbing. If you're fortunate enough to be playing as Pathfinder, then you'll get a lovely grappling hook that you can take up cliffs and onto building rooftops with relative ease, but other legends don't get that luxury. Luckily, however, Apex Legends does include a climbing function to get you up and over ledges, onto building roofs, and even scaling certain cliff faces. Run up to a ledge, press and hold your jump button, and your legend will start to climb. It takes a few rounds to start learning which ledges can be climbed up onto, and which ones are totally out of reach, but it's a very valuable mechanic, and it can give you a split-second advantage over an enemy who doesn't have the high ground. If there are multiple ledges in a row, you might find you can get yourself up alongside a cliff edge and be able to use that position to fire down on an enemy squad. Sliding over to tip number 4, that's a great segue, use the sliding mechanic. Apex Legends doesn't share the wall running mechanics from its bigger brother Titanfall 2, but it does retain the sliding that made movements so fluid in that game just a couple of years back. When you're sprinting, you can tap the crouch button and you'll go into a slide. Tally this up with a slope and you can maintain the speed boost that you get from the slide, or even increase your speed if the slope is steep enough. It makes movement in gunfights a little bit more flexible, and if you're attempting to outplay an enemy, you might find sliding away down a hill, getting some distance, and then firing back from a safer position is a better play than being just 5 feet away from them, frantically trying to put bullets into their body. Now, when moving through open areas, throw a few slides in there as well. This changes the stance of your character. It makes you a little bit harder to hit if enemies are watching you. Tip number 5 for you all is all about managing your inventory. Just like other Battle Royale games, Apex Legends allows you to carry more than you can hold in your hands. You start with a small backpack that can be swapped out for bigger and better ones that you find on the ground when looting. Those 3 tiers, white, blue and purple, increase the size of your inventory. And the last tier, the gold backpack, that has an added ability that allows you to heal and reapply your shield faster. Items will stack within your inventory, so you can carry more than 1 item per slot. The capacity of each slot is denoted by these white bars at the bottom. If they're full, you'll open up a new slot if you pick up more of that item. Now, if you're looking to make some more space, maybe drop items that don't have that many stacked. That way you're maximizing the space that you have. Any items with a red circle on them are currently not useful to you. They don't fit on any of your weapons and therefore they're just taking up space in your backpack. Drop those and free up the space, that way you don't waste time swapping items in and out of your backpack as you loot different areas. You can of course keep items that you don't need right at that point. Maybe you're saving a sniper scope and a stock for later on in the round, but just be aware they take up valuable space, and if you don't have the biggest backpack, then you are restricting yourself somewhat. Also, take some health and some shield items. Don't hoard them all. Maybe share them out with your squad so every member has some supplies to call upon. But if you do have the highest tier backpack and you've got some empty space and one of your squad members wants to carry something but their backpack is full, maybe offer to them that you could carry it for them. Tip number 6, and this is kind of linked to inventory management in tip number 5, in Apex Legends you don't have to worry about attachments when swapping guns. They'll automatically move across if they fit that new gun. If they don't fit and you have inventory space, they'll end up in there, and you can either drop them to save space or keep them for another weapon that you're hoping to find. This means that you don't spend any more time managing than you absolutely have to, and more time focusing on the action within the map, which is obviously far more important. Tip number 7, and this one might seem quite obvious, but I've fallen victim to it quite a few times already: choose your battles wisely. Most weapons in Apex Legends are specialised to work in different scenarios, but since the game just launched, there's a little bit of balancing work that needs to be done by the development team, so some weapons right now are much more consistent than others. For example, I'd always recommend running with a close range weapon and a medium to long range weapon. If you carry 2 close range guns, you risk not being able to suppress enemies in the distance and get them to move off. And if you carry 2 long range guns, you risk not being able to help squad mates if you get sprung upon by an enemy squad. At the moment, with the game only being a week old, I recommend running with the Peacekeeper shotgun and an LMG of some kind, preferably the M600 Spitfire if you want something that fires consistently. Now, the Peacekeeper is deadly at close range, and if you attach a choke, you can hold down the ADS button for a couple of seconds, it tightens the spread of the pellets, and it creates a really powerful shot against enemies. The M600, when combined with a good red dot optic and an extended mag, gives you more rounds to hit enemies before you have to reload, giving it a 1-up over SMGs and other automatic weapons. You do sacrifice a bit of rate of fire, but I think it's worth it, especially when you're starting out in Apex Legends, since you just want to spew bullets towards an enemy. You can worry about finesse once you've learned the basics. Tip number 8 for you: pay close attention to the zone, particularly if you're playing as Pathfinder. His passive ability allows him to see the location of the next zone after the one that's currently active, meaning you and your squad can move into a better position before most others. If you spot an enemy squad towards the edge of a zone and there's not much time left before that next zone moves in, it might be best to stalk those enemies before engaging them and making sure you are within the next zone before taking the first shot. This means you're safer and you won't be running against the zone at the same time as trying to take on enemies, giving you less to think about. Tip number 9, use the ziplines dotted around the map. It might be tempting to avoid them since they do make you quite a big target, but they allow you to move at a consistent pace, as well as being able to fire your weapon at the same time. If you're spotted running across an open area and an enemy starts shooting at you, invariably you'd have to stop or slow down, ADS, strafe a little bit, and fire back. That massively reduces your movement. On a zipline crossing an open area, you're moving all the time, that makes you harder to hit, but you're still able to shoot back at an enemy, albeit with less accuracy than if you were on the ground running. It's a trade-off really, movement speed over weapon accuracy. When you're getting used to the game, I'd argue it's best to keep moving as much as possible and only engage enemies when you think you've got yourself in a good position. The zipline allows you to get into a good position faster than if you were running. And finally for this video, tip number 10, holster your weapons to increase your movement speed. I forgot you could even do this. When moving around the map, holstering your weapon and simply running with your fist pumping, that will allow you to move around a little bit faster and can often put off enemies who are trying to shoot at you, since your movement speed is a little bit faster than what they might be expecting. And you can slide without your gun as well, giving you an even bigger boost in speed. So if you need to get away from a gunfight or you want to flank an enemy to surprise them, holster, move, re-equip, and then shoot. So there you have it, 10 tips for beginners in Apex Legends, and I think at the moment everybody can use these tips since we're all beginners. If you found these tips helpful, please give this video a like and maybe share it with your friends who might also be new to the game. And if you have any of your own tips already, leave them down in the comments section. I'll upvote the best ones so that you guys can see even more tips. And if we get enough, I'll follow up this video with another one either later this week or next week. But thank you very much for watching. My name is Westie, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.